Little Golden Books have to be written in a very specific style. There's very specific type of verbiage that you have to use to make it feel like a Little Golden Book. And then that's only part of it, because a lot of it is, only part of it is writing the narration. A lot of it is structuring the story and writing the art notes to the artist, which are sort of akin to the stage directions or scene descriptions in a screenplay or a play, which tell the actors what to do in any given scene, um, and also describe what the characters look like and what the settings look like and everything. Um, and Little Golden Books have that too. They're just called the art notes. And a lot of writing a Little Golden Book is writing in the art notes. You're also, of course, as I said, writing the text or the copy or the narration, whatever you want to call it. But a big part of writing a Little Golden Book is writing the art notes, and it's very much, you have to do it in a concise way where you're not being too verbose, but you're still getting across, you're sort of evoking a kind of a mood. What happened was, I don't know whether Universal had come to Little Golden Books or vice versa. I don't know how that works. I don't pretend to be, I'm not in those meetings, Um, and I'm just a freelancer. So, I'm not privy to that. But I do know that when Little Golden Books came to me and were like, would you like to write the Jurassic Park Little Golden Book? And I was like, oh, absolutely, yes. But it was a little bit of a challenge because, as opposed to, you could say that there's something adult about Doctor Strange as an IP, and that, it's a challenge to write it for little kids, which it is. And then I believe the second one I wrote, the second Little Golden Book that I wrote for Penguin Random House was the Avengers one, which is called The Threat of Thanos, which I have somewhere around here. Here it is. And with that one specifically, it was, I certainly got questions when that was coming out, like, is the snap gonna be in there? Nervous laugh, and it's like, no, the snap is not in here. This is actually an original story that I wrote, where they asked me to pitch them a few different Avengers ideas, and I pitched one, and I had pitched like 3 or 4, and the one that they went with is the one that I wrote. And then it was like off to the races. But it's, even though it's a bunch of characters who were in Infinity War / Endgame, and even though Thanos is one of those characters and he is trying to collect the Infinity Stones, all that also applies to a lot of the comic books that predated the Avengers comic books that predated Infinity War and Endgame. So it's not an adaptation of those movies, this book. And so it doesn't end with the snap. The snap is not a part of it, because also even if it was an adaptation, there's no way to make the snap not horrifying. What I found fascinating about the ending of Infinity War, and spoilers for a movie that's several years old, but is it ends with the snap, and that was like a more disturbing thing to me than most horror movies, And it's partially because you don't expect a horror movie beat to happen at the end of what is, until that point, a fairly lighthearted superhero movie, even though the filmmakers do warn you that some scary stuff's coming, because it opens with Loki getting killed by Thanos. And again, spoilers for a movie that's several years old. But it's, hopefully if you're listening to this, you have seen Infinity War. If not, pause this podcast and go interview and go see Infinity War, because it's a really good movie. But it opens with Loki being killed pretty disturbing way by Thanos, and then Thor's dealing with all this trauma for the next 2 movies, for the balance of Infinity War, and then also for Endgame as well, with having like half of the Asgardians being wiped out, including a lot of the most beloved people in his life, like Heimdall and Loki. And so, a lot of people thought I was trying to turn Infinity War and Endgame into this book, which I was not. This is a different story. I just want to make that clear. But with Jurassic Park, I was trying to turn Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park movie, into a book for 2 to 5 year olds, which is was quite challenging, but I think that we pulled it off. Meaning me and Josh Holtzclaw, the illustrator, who's incredible, as you can see from this artwork on there, and of course the editors, Dennis Shealy and Rich Globlotsky. But but uh, it was a challenge, but I definitely know I was up to the challenge, and it was basically a question of, okay, I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to make a list of scenes that are in the film, and I'm going to make a list of scenes that are in the film, and I'm going to see which ones I think I can adapt for this, and where, and also how simple I can make the spine of the story, because it's already got a pretty simple spine, right? It's already got a pretty simple spine. I'm going to take out the stuff that doesn't work. I'm going to take out the stuff that there's no way to explain it to a kid. So even though Dennis Nedry is a very big part of the movie, and even though Dennis Nedry is a very big, he's pretty much the closest thing that we have to a human antagonist in the first Jurassic Park film. He is pretty much, a lot of people think the dinosaurs are the antagonists, and they pretty much are, but in that they are definitely an obstacle in the path of our protagonists, okay? They are definitely a big obstacle in the path of Alan and Ellie and Ian and the kids, and Tim and Lex. But that having been said, we do have this human antagonist who you can reason with, because he's a human being with a human personality, and that's Dennis. But how do you explain any of the stuff that Dennis is doing on a Little Golden Books level? How do you explain, okay, he's like, he's got these dinosaur embryos, and he's selling them on the black market. None of that is translatable to like a Little Golden Book story. There's no way you could explain that stuff. What's the black market? What's an embryo? What's like, it's I can't, there's no way. And so there's everything about him is sleazy, and that's by design. That's the function he fulfills in the Jurassic Park movie. However, that's also the exact same reason that I had to strip him out of the Little Golden Book version, because there was just no way. It's just, in the Little Golden Book version, the dinosaurs are the antagonists, period, and that's it. Well, there's like, certain other characters that, like the lawyer for John Hammond's lawyer. Yeah, I know the kids are really dying to see the lawyer character in the Little Golden Book version. Spoiler alert, they're not. And also he dies on the toilet, and that's a very funny scene in the movie. It's very silly and silly on purpose in the movie, / scary, because no one wants to die like that. No one wants to die, period, I don't think, but no one wants to die like that, but I can't put that in the book. It's like, you put in a toilet in the book, and for shock value, and and it's for little kids, and they're like, mommy, daddy, why is this happening? What's a lawyer, and why is he dying on a porta potty? You know what I mean? There's just like stuff that'll raise too many questions, and also it'll gum up the works. It'll get in the way of telling a good story, because you have like, I think it's like 24 pages that you have to tell this story, and there's maybe like 25, 27 words that can comfortably fit on each page, all right? And then a lot of these are spreads, or 2-page spreads. And so you've still got like 25 words that can fit on each page, but you're trying to do it in as few words as possible. You're trying to tell the story. You've got to explain who Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Malcolm are in the most concise way possible. You've got to explain who John Hammond is in the most concise way possible. You've got to explain how they brought dinosaurs back to life. How they not brought them, they weren't dead dinosaurs that they somehow turned into zombies or anything, but how did they do this? How did they create new dinosaurs? How did they create them from DNA? What is DNA? How do they do that? You have to unpack that in the most kid-friendly way possible. And that's the biggest challenge about writing a book like that, honestly, or about writing that book in particular. And also, you're taking a fairly adult property. Again, I said it was like it's like your first horror movie if you're a kid of a certain age. But let's be clear, this is mostly a movie for adults. And it's got some very adult jokes and relationships and everything. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's not a slam against the movie, but it does make it a little bit of a challenge in how exactly you're going to turn this into a little golden book, and that's basically the challenge there. But you basically approach it like you approach any other project. If you're me, because I work on a lot of licensed character books and video games and comics too, and you like approach it like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to do this, and I'm gonna figure out. And part of it was also like taking scenes that are kind of scary from the book and figuring out how I can lighten them up and make them lighthearted and fun and even slapsticky and comical in the movie, in the Little Golden Book. So like the scene of where Tim and Lex are. I think they're in the kitchen at the visitor center. I think they're at the visitor center at that point, right?
Yeah, they
They're
are.
at they're at the kitchen, yeah. And I'm flipping through this as I'm talking to you, so I'm making sure that it's yes. I do say in the book that they're at the visitor center because I want the reader to like follow along with me, and like I want to be very clear as to where we are on Jurassic Park in this scene and everything. And they're in the cabinets, and there's that scene where like the raptors are coming to get them, and they see what they think is Lex, but it's really Lex's reflection in the mirrored surfaces of the cabinets, right? Because they're all made of metal, and they see what they think is Lex, and they run towards her, and then boom, they run into a wall. It's almost like a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon, you know. And I thought, okay, that scene is very, very suspensefully directed by Steven Spielberg, and it's a very suspenseful scene. It's almost like Hitchcockian scene in the movie, but it's also kind of funny because the dinosaur was outwitted by its own lack of understanding of basic like laws of physics and the way mirrors work and everything, and the fact that it was just looking at a mirror. It feels like a human assassin like gunning for Lex. That human assassin would be like, wait a minute, I think that's just a reflection in the mirror. I don't think that's. But dinosaurs can't logic that out. So, but that's what makes the scene work. But what makes it work in the Little Golden Book version is that you can actually put a lot of slapstick, a lot of sort of Wile E. Coyote style slapstick in that scene and make it work. And then bam, it was just a reflection. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean? You could turn it into like a very silly slapstick heavy moment. So you draw out the comedy that's already there from the scene in the version of it that exists in the movie. And then you also strip out all the suspense that's in that version of the scene in the movie. And so you're kind of doing two things at once. And you're basically trying to do that with everything. You're thinking like, if I was like, you're using your own like mental wayback machine to, for those of you like, is it Rocky and Bullwinkle, or is it? I can't remember. What is the Wayback Machine? Is not from Rocky and
It's
Bullwinkle.
lost on me.
It's from Sherman and Mr. Peabody. Thanks,
Okay.
Thomas. Thanks for remembering that old ass cartoon that makes me sound old because I'm referencing it. I'm 900 years old, kids. Anyway, but you're basically using your own mental wayback machine or time machine or whatever
Yeah.
to think, okay, when I was a kid, what about this story would appeal to me? So like when they find the Triceratops and she's sick and Ellie is tending to her, you obviously focus on that and the fact that kids are going to be sympathetic because it's a dinosaur and it's injured. And you're supposed to be sympathetic. You're supposed to have a lot of empathy for that dinosaur in the movie. But what you don't include is the giant pile of dinosaur excrement right next to it where Ian Malcolm is like, that's a lot of shit. You don't have that. You don't have that in the Little Golden Book. So that's a good example. That and the scene in the visitor center with the mirrored countertops are good examples of like scenes that you tweak a bit. You include them in the book, but you in the Little Golden Book version, but you kind of tweak them a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the trick. That's a large part of the trick to writing something like this. The other thing is, um, the dinosaurs are always trying to eat all these people, and in some cases they do eat the different human characters in the movie. They at very least kill them. Dennis Nedry, we don't see him die, but we do see like a dinosaur like lunging at him, and that's the last thing, and him going and that's the last thing we see of him. So it's implied that he's just been murdered, by the dinosaur. So in that, I was like, how do we deal with that? And then it came to me that, a big overall global fix for this is that instead of the dinosaurs trying to eat them in the book, in the Little Golden Book, they're just roaring at them. So once I realized that you could do that, it might not sound like it's like brain surgery or anything, like it's this big like epiphany, but for me at the time it was, because once I realized that, it made writing certain other things in the book much easier, because I was like, oh, you can just sort of blanket over all this violence by saying that you just like you're using like a pencil eraser to like erase it, like get rid of it, and you're getting rid of the violence and just saying that they're roaring at our characters, because to a little kid that's scary enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, I don't want a dinosaur roaring at me, and you don't, and an adult doesn't want a dinosaur roaring at them, but it's for a different reason, because with an adult, they know that the dinosaur will follow up the roaring by gobbling you up and eating you, or doing to like in, oh god, in the first Jurassic World movie, there's that poor lady. She's like, she
Yeah.
breaks down Howard's personal assistant,
So
and
this has been trending on Twitter recently, with people really angry about how she literally gets like picked up and tormented by a pteranodon, and then just when it's over, the mosasaur comes out and finishes her off. Yeah.
and I was rewatching that when I was writing the Mr. DNA's Book of Dinosaurs, and I was like, well, at least the Mosasaurus in this book doesn't do that. And it's like, and again, this is nothing against the filmmakers. If I was writing a scene like that, I would probably go there too, because you gotta top the dinosaur kills from the previous movies, and the audience sure hasn't seen anything like that before. Because she sort of dies 3 times.
Yeah.
She gets like it's like the dinosaurs are playing a game of like volleyball, and they're like volleying her. She's the ball, and they're volleying her from like
Yeah.
one dinosaur to the other, you know. And so, yeah, uh, you can't include something like that in the book. There's no way to do it, But I think that it was very smart of Penguin Random House and Universal to do something like to like commission something like the Jurassic Park Little Golden Book, because they know that there's a whole generation that grew up on that movie, that now when they were kids they saw the movie,
Yeah.
and now they're parents themselves, and so they can read the book to their kids and they can reminisce about it, and it's got the nostalgia factor to it. And then the kids, this is their like first experience to Jurassic Park, and they see the G-rated kid-friendly version that's in this book. And then when they're old enough, they'll watch the PG-13 live action version that's for grown-ups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can like, this is a way to like ease them into it. And so I think it's a very savvy thing of like for Little Golden Books and Penguin Random House to do,